we started this journey talking about the new health economy and our customers and what is the new consumer for healthcare. Then we went into the culture of service. Then we heard from the infinite mindset, and we went through the the table discussion of how to develop leadership, and now we're getting into tools, specific tools for delegation and feedback. So that's what we're going to do today, and for that we have invited great partners with us, which is First Inc. And Paul Stabile is joining us. Paul is a master facilitator. I always call him Master Jedi, but he's a master facilitator that works like a Master Jedi. If you like Star Wars, he has more than 20 years of experience in OD and in a variety of organizations, both domestically and globally. He has held positions all the way to the C-suite in different organizations, created high potential leadership development programs in a global pharmaceutical organization, et cetera, was a customer of yours for a number of years, then went to the good side of the business, right? And now he has become a master facilitator. He also, teaches the facilitators. He does train the trainers for facilitators, in every organization. And he was instrumental in even training some of our own internal facilitators. So you're gonna have a great time with Paul. It's very knowledgeable and very interactive. So Paul, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you very much, Nidia. And it's so nice to hear you say my last name, because you say it the traditional way and not the American way, which it's Stabile in America, but you say it the traditional way, and I love hearing that. So welcome, everyone, and thanks for letting me be a part of your program today. And what I want to talk to you about is a little bit, again, to build on what you talked last time around coaching. We want to talk about a couple of tools that we think go really hand in hand with that in delegation and in feedback. But first, we want to break things down a little bit. Fierce conversations, where we come from, the definition of what a fierce conversation is this. It's a conversation in which we come out from behind ourselves into the conversation and make it real. And so really, that's my first question for you today. If you would pop in the chat box, what does it mean to you to make it real? Air quotes. What do you think it means? What does it look like? What does it sound like to make it real? Give me your thoughts in the chat box, if you would, please. Transparent, okay? Genuine, honest, authentic, and transparent. To be able to communicate the hard stuff, which is great. The blunt, honest truth, direct and honest, authentic, direct, well-intended. Yeah, and all of that is true and then some. To not sugarcoat, to be constructive, to be vulnerable, which is absolutely essential, especially, I think the higher up you go in an organization, the more you need to be vulnerable and transparent to show people that you're human, that you're real, to get things done. Again, direct and transparent, honest and transparent, because what happens if we're not? We're unreal. And what are the costs of unreal conversations to us? Because those are very, very expensive. And so tell me, in your words, build on that. What's the cost of unreal? What does that cost us? Again, what does that look like if we're unreal? There's a lack of trust. That comes up a couple of times very quickly. Yeah, it's not clear. It's a waste of time. There's lost productivity. There's trust issues. There's rework, misdirection, fragmentation. People get guarded. There's division. There's even more conversations. We have enough, don't we? Yeah, and we have to have more when we're not real. There's doubt. There's misunderstandings, missed accountability, all of that stuff. Yeah. Yep. And it's very costly. So again, fierce, we come up from behind ourselves. So we're authentic, our authentic selves all the time. And there may be some discomfort in that, but that's required. We're authentic, we come into it, into the conversation and make it real. And so what can we expect as leaders when we are making it real and we're having a fierce conversation? Well, conversations do four things, and we call them our four objectives. And the first one is to interrogate reality. Because here's the deal, and I think we all know this now, no plan survives its collision with reality, because reality has this nasty habit of changing, seriously altering our fantasies about how things are supposed to go. I mean, my reality used to be get up Monday morning, go to the airport, fly somewhere, deliver training to great people like you, fly home. Well, reality changed that because this silly thing called COVID came in and shut the world down basically in March of last year. We're what, 14 months, 15 months into this now. And the other thing about reality is my reality and your reality may not be the same. In fact, they may change and we might not tell each other. And really difficult things happen as a result of that. So help me with this, fingers at the ready, and type into the chat box the first thing that comes to mind when you see this. What's the first thing that comes to mind when you see that? Creativity, peace, serene, calm, peaceful, vacations, fun, happy, more fun, relax. Here's the funny thing. I see a flying mushroom. There's the cap. There's a stem. There's a stem. I see that. So where I should be now, I agree, Darwin. So here's the big question. Who's right? Is it fun, vacation, beach, a flying mushroom? Who's right? Yeah, everyone's right. And the problem is that's where we get into trouble, because the world's so busy going at such a frenetic pace. We're, in different places and all this. We tend to let the blinders come in and we make being right more important than being curious. And that's where we get in trouble. It's only by seeing things from all perspectives can we be in a position to make the best possible decision, which is that second objective of a fierce conversation, to provoke learning, your learning, my learning. It's what happens when we say what it looks like from our perspective and fully listen to what it looks like from other perspectives. Robert Redford does a great job of this. When he kicks off a brand new project for Sundance, he will say, I'll tell you what I think. Then I want you to tell me what I'm missing. I'm inviting you to influence me. I want to be different when the conversation is over. Who wouldn't want an invitation like that the next time you go to a high stakes meeting? Can you imagine the thought process, the iterations, the collaboration that would come out of a meeting with that? And so if we do that, if we interrogate multiple realities, if we provoke everyone's learning, including ours, we're in a better position to tackle tough challenges. And that's the stuff that's taking up space in our brain. How many of you would say you procrastinate, even in the least, when it comes to tackling a tough challenge or having a difficult conversation? That happened to anyone? I'm seeing some hands go up. A couple of no's, which is great. I'm seeing some hands go up too. Here's the problem. Okay, pull brain science into this. When you're worried and focused on that one challenge, all the energy in your brain is going to that one spot, robbing the other areas of your brain of the energy that it needs to be creative, innovative, engaged. When you tackle that tough challenge, the energy is released, and now you can be more aware of all these things. And then in the midst of doing all that, our relationships with each other are improved. And for us, that's what it's all about. Especially where you all are at the upper leader level, getting right up to the C-suite. This is what it's all about. Because we have a thing at Fierce we call smart plus heart. And it's extremely important for anyone who wants to be called a leader. You can have the title of leader, or you can be the person to whom people commit to at the deepest level. But to do that, you have to connect with people's hearts and their minds. And I'll show you how important it is. In fact, you're going to show me how important it is. Get your fingers at the ready again, please. And think of the best boss you ever had. The best boss you ever worked for. Okay, in one word, in the chat box, tell me why. What was it? What was the behavior, the attribute that made them your best boss? Inspiring, mentor, realistic, communicative, respectful, challenging, humble, inspiring, listened, honest and committed to my development, mentor, role model, motivator, trust, a human being. This is a great list. Now, let's take what we know about competencies and about the skills we apply at the job and put them in two buckets. You've got the hard skills, which is research, which is data, finance, things like that, strategy, and you've got the soft skills, which are conversation, communication, relationship building. Let me go through some of these again. Humble, inspiring, respectful, communicative, mentor, listened, honest, role model, trust. Okay. All these things, the vast majority of what I heard go in the soft skill side. So what you're saying is, because I'm not hearing that they were your best boss because they were a great strategist. I'm not hearing that they were a best boss because they were a whiz with finance or research or any of these things. What I'm hearing is they were your best boss because of how they made you feel. It's a feeling economy nowadays. And you just proved it to me. And it makes sense. Daniel Goleman, who you heard about in your last session on coaching, he coined the phrase, Steve Jobs gets all the credit. IQ gets you in the door. EQ gets you promoted. And it makes sense. You start a new job, you get promoted, you're as smart as anybody else. What makes a difference is how you relate to people, how you motivate people, how you inspire people. Brains alone isn't enough, my friends, which leads to another favorite quote of mine, that people won't care what you know until they know how much you care. They won't care how much you know until they know how much you care. That's putting the whole heart plus smart thing into play, which really makes a lot of sense and comes into play with everything you've been learning so far, because last time you learned a lot about coaching. Okay. And we're a huge fan of coaching, but how does that apply? How can we take that and apply that to a couple of different areas in your world as well? Like specifically delegation. How many of you instantly think of the words delegation and development in the same sentence? Give me a show of hands. How many of you think of delegation and development together? See, I got a couple reluctant hands going up, but not a ton of them. And I think it's a shame, because we think of delegation as a way to free you to become a better leader, to free you to develop your people, to fill that pipeline, to further engage people, mentor people, all these sorts of things. It allows you to lead more effectively and develop people within your organization. So think about this, all the things that are on your personal to-do list, all the big things. I mean, in addition to what's on your regular to-do list, what about all the other things that you're responsible for? And you see some examples there on the screen: lead change, manage performance, build collaborative teams and partnerships, manage a budget, grow revenue, all these things. So as you think about all those things that are on your to-do list, do me a favor. And I think you have I would have to think in the bottom of your participant banner, you'll have some response icons that you can use. And give me a thumbs up or a green check or anything like that if you can answer this question: I am successfully achieving all of my leadership responsibilities. Okay, give me a thumbs up or a green check or even a head nod for those of you who have your camera on. I'm successfully achieving all of my leadership responsibilities. I got some shakes going on there. And so here's the question: what gets in the way? What gets in the way of achieving all of these things that you want to do, that you need to do? Give me that in the chat box if you would. What gets in the way? Besides the obvious firefighting, but what gets in the way? Yeah, fires, the day-to-day. What else gets in the way? Lack of tools, the unknown of day-to-day, meetings because we don't communicate. Okay, me, analysis paralysis, multiple priorities. Yeah, so tell me this: what are you not finding time to do that if you did would make a significant difference to your organization? Answer that for me if you would. What are you not finding time to do that if you did would make a significant difference? Plan and prioritize, team development, time to think, more time to think, popular answer. Look beyond today, Remote working is a challenge. Yeah, it absolutely is. Looking at the big picture. So do me a favor. We gave you a couple of handouts, and this one's not in the handout. So find something to write down on as the answers keep coming in. Connect the dots, access the big picture, strategy versus tactic. Yeah. I want you to write down your top 3 time takers. But here's the criteria. Okay. Each of them have to be something you like doing, something you're good at, and something that's important to the organization. And this is just for your eyes. So right there at your desk, write that down. The top 3 time takers that take time out of your day that meet that criteria. There's something you like doing, something you're good at, and something that's important to the organization. I'll give you a few seconds to write that down. Something you like doing, something you're good at, and something that's important to the organization. The top 3 things that fit those criteria. And we'll come back to that in just a couple minutes. I see a lot of heavy thinking going on. All right, so maybe an obvious question, but why should we delegate? Well, obviously, there's a lot of great reasons why. Delegating effectively will free up our time so we can focus on the more strategic things or the more big picture things that we want to focus on. Another reason why is to fill up that pipeline, to engage our people. I mean, if the alien spaceship came down tomorrow and took you away, who would take your place? A lot of organizations I go to, they're like, I don't know. And that's a scary thought. Okay, that's a scary thought. And then finally, to allow you to be able to lead more effectively if we can delegate. And yet, a lot of times we don't. And so help me understand this and give me this answer in the chat box. I would delegate, but. What's the but? I would delegate, but what's the answer to that? Pop that in the chat box for me if you would, please. I would delegate, but I do it faster. I really like this part of my job. People on my team don't have the experience. It can take more time to delegate than doing it, but it's done correctly if I do it. I've had a lack of personnel to delegate to, okay? Lack of folks to delegate to. Everyone is overwhelmed. It's risky. Nothing prevents me from doing it, okay? I wanna make sure it's right. It takes longer to explain. Yeah, all these very common. There's a lot on everyone's plates, sure. All these are very, very common answers here. And for some, they just don't take the time. Or I would even say some don't know how to do it or how to do it properly, or even at what level to do the delegation. So let's take a look at a model that may help you to figure out delegation and may put it in a little bit of a different structure for you. And this is on page 1 of the delegation tree exercise that was attached to your invitation to come today. All right. We use a tree as a metaphor to talk about decision-making rights at various development levels. All right. And there's 4 levels to this. All right. Some things are delegated at what we call the leaf level. Okay. And at the leaf level, we basically just say, you make the decision, you act on it, carry on. I have full confidence in you, giving you full right and full authority. There's really no formal required need for you to report the action you took back to me. Now, obviously, being a great leader, you're still going to have regular communication with the person, but there's no formal need to hear back on it. That's your leaf level. Okay? You have your branch level, where you invite them to make the decision and to act upon it. And to ensure there's great communication up and down the line, you meet at a predetermined time, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, whatever, to ensure proper lines of communication are there so there's no surprises for anyone. Some decisions are made at the trunk level, where you ask the individual to make their decision, okay, do their due diligence, do their research, come back with a decision, not a recommendation or a suggestion, but a decision, but don't act on it yet until we have a chance to collaborate. And then lastly, there's things that are delegated to people at a root level, which means these are things I'm not willing to delegate or decisions that I will make, but we'll do this as part of a larger group. So if we build that around backwards, a root level decision could be something that's organization wide. Say you're implementing a new LMS and you want different perspectives. You'll invite someone to that meeting, but they won't have decision-making ability. And at the same time, you need their input to ensure we're doing the right thing. That could be a responsibility you're delegating at a root level. Trunk, from a development perspective, someone has shown some of the competencies, but you're not quite ready to let them run on it on their own. So again, this is a way of test and learn, if you will. Show me your decision on this. Let's walk through this and see where you're at. And that way we know whether they do have the knowledge, skills, and ability to execute this or not. It's a safe way to test things out. Again, branch, they've shown a good track record. You trust them. You're very comfortable in having them run with it. You just want to be included so there's no surprises, because there really should not be any communication surprises with things that are going on. And leaf level, again, full right, full authority, you fully trust them. There's no formal need to report back to you. But again, being the great leader you are, you're still going to have conversations with them on a regular basis. Let me ask you this. What would a micromanager's decision tree look like? In the chat box, what would a micromanager's decision tree look like? Yeah. And everyone's right on that. All roots and trunks, which I think is really kind of exhausting, that I would have to have my hands on all those things when they're things I can delegate to people and use as great development opportunities. Okay. Because as we look at this, thank you, Michael. It would look like a potato. Okay. That I'm going to borrow that and use that in the future. So thank you for sharing that with me. Can a leaf level be a big responsibility? It can. All of the levels can be big responsibilities. We're just delegating them based on the experience, the knowledge, skills, and experience and development opportunity of the person we're giving them to. Because again, we need to think of the mindset of development opportunities to fill the pipeline, to further motivate, further engage. And unfortunately, we still tend not to delegate. And there's three big reasons why. One is, again, our reluctance, that whole I would delegate but answer. There's reluctance to delegate because it would take too long. Well, a favorite phrase of mine is slow down to go faster. And that's what happens when we take the time to walk someone through the whole process of delegating and giving them the tools they need to be successful. We'll slow down right now. In the end, it'll allow us to go faster. And trust me, the same things that you're worried about as the person doing the delegating, the person who's receiving it or the delegatee, they're worried about the same things. So a conversation, a good holistic whole conversation would be a great thing for everyone to really help prepare for what's coming up. The other mistake that we make when we're reluctant to delegate is we only delegate to our stars, to those A players, our superstars. And there's a lot of pitfalls there. So help me understand from your experience, what are the problems that are caused when we only delegate to our stars, when we only delegate to our A players? What happens there? There's a bottleneck when they're not available. Others remain in their comfort zone. You overwhelm them. It doesn't develop the others to become stars. Good ideas may be missed. Thank you, Diane. Love that thought process there. We burn them out. They're overwhelmed. You burn out your stars. Unconscious bias might be present. We're not being fair. Other branches atrophy. Okay, overload, no development, less team engagement, demotivates others. Yeah. Cause of lack morale. Others do minimum as necessary. It's kind of reverse discrimination. We're penalizing our great performers by giving them more to do, and we're almost rewarding our poor performers by not giving them anything else to do. And I think, again, because we don't think of the word development and delegation hand in hand. And then it's the all or nothing approach. Yeah, the reward to good work is more work. The all or nothing approach is when a lot of us say, okay, well, I can't delegate because they can't do the whole thing, so I'm not going to delegate any part of it. Again, if we look back at that tree, can we not delegate something, start at the trunk level and work with them to build that competence and confidence? And then after a while say, okay, once you get to this level, I'll delegate this to you at the branch level. And after a while, when they're really good, get up to the leaf level. We can do it in phases. Again, it'll take a little bit of time up front. In the end, a time saver for you and a great development opportunity for the other people. Now, think back. I had you write down those top 3 things that take up your time that had the specific criteria you like doing, you're good at, and they're important to the organization. Why do you think I was having you write things down that way? Why do you think I was having you identify those top 3 things? Okay, because when we delegate, we have more time for these to do delegation levels. They could be delegated, question mark, and that's exactly where I'm going. Take a look at those 3 things that you wrote down. Are they things that only you could or should be doing? Or are you hanging on to some things that you really like doing that probably would be better served as a development opportunity for someone else? Here's why I ask, and here's why I had you write that down. How many of you are familiar with the term dumping? Okay, I got a couple of hands going up. Let me share a quick story. Previously, before I came to Fierce, I worked at a global pharmaceutical company, and I was running leadership development for them. When I first came on board, I knew that my boss ran new employee orientation, and we were the main manufacturing site in the US, so we did orientation every week. Well, come Wednesday or Thursday, orientation was Monday. Come Wednesday or Thursday, my boss would start walking around the office going, ugh, I have to get ready for new employee orientation. Got to check with IT to see if all the passwords are set. Got to make sure all the laptops are there. Got to check with the guest speakers, going on and on and on about all the things that he hated associated with new employee orientation. Until one day, he walks up to my desk. Hey, Paul, I have a great development opportunity for you. How would you like to own new employee orientation, huh? Yeah, not quite, Sandra. What do you think I was thinking at that point? And it wasn't Sandra's cheer. I mean, I'm going, really? Seriously? This is a development opportunity. After I've heard you for 6 months walk around talking about how much you hated it. So flip that around. What if you walked up to someone and you were delegating something that you loved doing, you were good at, and was important to the organization? What mind frame do you think they would be in at that point if you presented a development opportunity like that? Give me your thoughts in the chat box. What do you think they would think? What do you think they would say? Yeah, media, right off the bat, recognition. Wow, really? You want me to take that responsibility? They trust me. It's a challenge. It's a reward. Yeah, be honest with yourself. How many of those 3 things that you wrote down are things that only you can do? I'm guessing at least one of those is something that really would be better suited for somebody else to do. And if you gave one of those away, how much more time would you have to work on those big picture strategic things that you want to work at? Back to the chat box, reward, they'll feel valued and trusted, mentorship. Okay, so what I want to do is I want you to think about this. Look at the second page of that delegation tree exercise that you got that was attached to the invitation today. There's some questions on there I want you to answer. And I want you to kind of talk about with some of your peers to maybe share some thoughts about delegation, maybe get some new ideas from your peers. What would be the best use of your time? Again, what's the one thing if you had more time to do, you would love to dive into? What activity or responsibility is no longer the best use of you? Hint, it's one of those 3 things I had you identify. Okay, to whom would you like to give this responsibility? Okay, who's someone that you would love to delegate this to? At what level? Leaf, branch, trunk. I would also add on that question, what resources would they need in order to be successful? When would you like to do it? And how much of that time would it free up for you? Okay, take 2 minutes right now and plop down some answers to that. Okay, real quickly, 2 minutes to write down some answers to those questions. And then we're going to send you off into a breakout. I'll give you a couple minutes to fill that out right now, though, before you go. All right, welcome everybody back in the room. Sorry to cut off the conversations that were going on. Sounds like there were some great conversations going on. Would love to hear from you, chat box or raise your hand to speak live, but what came out of the conversation? What was part of your conversation? Who's ready to dive in and start delegating something away? Would like to understand that. Just thoughts from you from your conversation. Again, in the chat box or raise your hand and we'll call on you to speak live. Would love to hear thoughts from what you talked about. Yeah, Sandra.
Sorry, trying to unmute myself. We talked a lot about delegating. We talked a lot, especially about delegating in meetings and about how do we make 2 things. How do we change a little bit the culture and make it acceptable for someone else to go in your place? Because there's a lot of, oh no, but I want you in the meeting. And also, how do we make our people comfortable to fail? And how do we, which is also cultural, how do we create an environment of people feeling that if they go and they make a decision without us in the room, that it's okay to make the wrong decision or that it's okay to fail, so that they feel comfortable enough to go in our place and they don't keep coming back to us for validation on the decisions that they're making. So there's a shift in what we do and also how culturally we behave when someone else goes in our place.
Yeah, great comments on that. I think a lot of that, and I welcome any of your thoughts on that, but a lot of that I think ties into what you all talked about last time on the coaching side of things and how you set up coaching and how we set up that culture of coaching and feedback to set that standard, to make it safe to ask questions, to make it safe to make decisions, to make it safe to make the wrong decision, because we're going to constantly be in a cycle of feedback and conversation back and forth, so we can quickly course correct if necessary, knowing that it's going to be done in a supportive manner. So really a lot of that comes from you leaders in making it safe and creating that environment. But yeah, great questions and nothing that's going to happen overnight, but something that you definitely all have great impact over. What else? What else? Who else? Did anyone come out of that exercise going, yeah, I really do need to delegate this off? Okay, I see some heads going. All right, good. When? You don't have to tell me right now, but when are you going to do that? Okay, it's a great idea, but that's all it is if it stays stuck in your head and we don't commit to it. So Diane, I'm looking at you. I see you shaking your head. Okay, I'm going to check in with you later on, see if you've done this or not. All right, so hand in hand with this then, how do we make this transition? How do we delegate this off and how do we continue to develop our people? Well, again, it was given to you that great Harvard Business Review article, and your last conversation was on coaching. And in reading it, I see a lot of similarities between our model of feedback. We love coaching, and we have what I feel is a phenomenal coaching model. Yeah, thank you, Nidia. The leader is coach. And a couple of things stick out with me as I was reading it. It's the work that all managers should engage in with all of their people all the time. in ways that help define the organization's culture and advance its mission. That's pretty powerful stuff right there. And so what's the culture that you're creating with your people from a coaching and a feedback perspective? Because what we're looking for, I mean, here's our definition. It's a conversation, because we're all about conversations, in which we help ourselves and others stay awake during gradually so that we arrive at our desired suddenly. Now, in our foundational pieces, our first transformational idea, we say that our careers, our companies, our relationships, and our lives succeed or fail gradually, then suddenly, one conversation at a time. And really look through your life. Anything that was a failure, what were the gradual signs along the way before it became a suddenly bad thing? And all the good things in your life, marriage, children, degrees, promotions, everything was gradually, then suddenly. And so that's our whole goal behind feedback, to help ourselves stay awake during gradually, to see the signs so we arrive at our desired suddenly. Because the culture we want to create is one of open, honest, face-to-face or screen-to-screen, 365, with those people central to your success and happiness. Whether you report to them, they report to you, or no one reports to anyone. That's our goal, and that's what we're after. And feedback helps us get there. Feedback or coaching, whichever one you want to call it, there's a direct tie-in between both of those. And I'm going to do some more quotes from that Leader as Coach article that you read, because I think it ties in really, really well. Our personal feedback model is built on what we call waypoints. A waypoint is a term used in navigation to describe a physical point of reference. For us, waypoint are the conversations you have along the way. The input, the candor, the wisdom, the courage of others during gradually, that will help us course correct, that will inspire us and motivate us to achieve our desired suddenly. And we do this through what we think is a really, really simple model. 3 E's: experience, explore, and explain. Based on a lot of asking, which again, I go back to the article you had before. You know, coaching is no longer just a benevolent form of sharing what you know with somebody less experienced or less senior, although that remains a valuable aspect. It's a way of asking questions to spark insights of the other person. And this is what we do: experience. Okay, what was your experience of the actions, of the behavior of the other person? Okay, just like through a video camera, very, very succinct, very simple. The what, where, when. Let me give you a quick example. Alan, in the meeting this morning, Joan had her hand up to offer feedback. You ignored her and moved on. Okay, when, this morning, where, in the meeting, and the what, Joan had her hand up to give feedback. You ignored her and moved on. Now, here's a funny thing about we human beings. Our third transformational idea is that all conversations are with myself, and sometimes they involve other people. We tell ourselves stories about how people act, and then we behave as if those stories are true. So tell me in the chat box, if you were at that meeting this morning and you saw Alan ignore Joan and move on with the meeting, what story could you have told yourself about what you saw? Tell me that in the chat box. What story could you have told yourself if you saw Alan ignoring Joan and moving on? Okay, he didn't value her opinion. What else? Didn't care for her opinion. What else? He doesn't care. Didn't care, lack of respect. Didn't feel he needed anyone else's opinion. He doesn't respect Joan. Okay, exclusion. I once had someone say he has poor peripheral vision. Lots of different things like that. Here's the thing. There were time constraints. Maybe he didn't see, lack of respect, opinions are not important, not paying attention. In most feedback models, after you share with someone what you experienced, you're advised to tell them why what they did was wrong, why they should have done something different. That's not our model, though. It's not our way. Okay, what we do is we hit the pause button and we go to explore. because explore is what turns us into a conversation, not a monologue or what we call a versation. Explore is what enriches the relationship and builds that culture of trust. Again, we said those 4 objectives. We interrogate multiple realities and provoke learning. That's what explore helps us do. And so when we get into explore, we start off with, again, the experience part. Alan, this morning in the meeting, Joan had her hand up to give feedback. You ignored her and moved on. Now with explore, we simply say, can you tell me what was going on? And this now can go really in 2 very, very different directions. If Alan says, oh my goodness, Joan had her hand up, I didn't see it. And to be quite honest, I'm running on fumes because I was up all night with my newborn. Thank you for telling me. I'm going to go talk to Joan because I really value her opinion. If that's what Alan said in the explore part, does the conversation even need to continue? And I got a lot of head shaking here. And honestly, I would agree. In fact, I'd empathize with him. Alan, I know I've raised 5 kids. I know all about sleepless nights. And thank you for going to talk to Joan. I think that's the right thing to do. See, in our model of feedback, we don't need all 3 pieces. Now, if Alan said, yeah, I know her hand was up and she always goes down rabbit trails that I didn't want to go down. And quite frankly, I wanted to end the meeting on time. So I just blew forward. Do we have a problem there? Yeah, I'm seeing emphatic. Yes, we have a problem there, even in the chat box. So from there, then now that we've taken the time to explore and we have a better understanding of Alan's perspective and his actions, now we go into explain. And with explain, key words here, we elicit self-generated insights, sound familiar, regarding his actions. So we ask open-ended questions to get him to come up with the answers and to come up with the solutions. It kind of looks like this, that non-directive coaching that was in your article last time. Non-directive, built on listening, built on questioning, built on withholding judgment. Leaders here work to draw wisdom, insight, and creativity out of the people that they're coaching. Same thing here with Alan. If Alan said, I purposely ignored Joan, okay, to get through it, what are some open-ended questions that you could ask Alan that would create those self-generated insights? Some non-directive coaching questions you could ask Alan to create those self-generated insights for him to understand what's going on and what needs to change. Pop some of your thoughts in the chat box. What are some simple questions you could ask him that would help that process along? Yeah, Diane, how do you think that made her feel? How would you feel? Open-ended? Allows for some self-generated insights? Yeah, what are some other questions you could ask? Okay, why do you think that way? Tell me your perspective. You know, how do you think this looked to the rest of the team? You know, what's important to you? How do you think this would affect engagement of the team? Okay. Yeah. What feedback can you give Joan? Yeah. What conversations have you had with her privately about rabbit trails? Why would you believe she doesn't have any value to add? What are the consequences if this continues? What's and hows are my favorite ways to start those questions. But anything open-ended to get them to say more than just a yes or no. Okay, yeah, what message do you think this sends to the rest of the team? That's where we're going. That's the explain part of us because it uses that non-directive part of coaching in there to help them come to self-generated insights. Hopefully Alan would go, oh yeah, that probably didn't look too good. Yeah, that's right. If they think I'm doing it to Joan, they may think I'm going to do it to everyone. That probably isn't the best way to go. See, because if you just say, Alan, that's wrong, do it this way because it's going to look like this, you're giving advice. And advice giving is not where it's at. Advice giving falls in a dormant brain. You know, the real things, when you come up with a solution yourself, new neural pathways are formed in the brain, such that when you face a similar or even the same situation again, the old adage is neurons that wire together, fire together, and boom, they'll fire because you came up with it. Just telling someone what to do, well, here's the outcome. How many of you, tell me, by show of hands, how many of you have answered a question from a colleague knowing full well that you answered that same question 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, or more? You find yourself multiple times answering the same question. Dr. Shinto raised his hand really fast on that, but almost everybody else did too. See, there's the problem. If we face that, we've probably been guilty of giving advice, or metaphorically throwing a fish at their feet as opposed to giving them the pole and teaching them how to fish themselves. That's what this non-directive coaching does. We ask open-ended questions to get them to think of the solution themselves. That way it sticks. Will it take a little longer at the beginning? Yes. Thus my favorite slow down to go faster phrase. Because once they get it, you'll all be able to go faster. And so that's our giving feedback. But the thing is, before we give feedback to anyone, we've got to make sure we're in the right mindset, that we're in the right mind frame. And so there's 4 questions to ask ourselves to make sure. You know, the first one, what's my true intention with giving feedback? Okay, is it to put a check in the box just so I say I did? Is it to prove I'm right? Or is it truly to help the other person grow and develop? That's one question. The second one, again, am I telling myself stories about this other person? Am I making assumptions about their abilities, their decisions, their behaviors? What's the story I'm telling myself? Or this one, have I laid out my expectations in clear and direct terms? Or finally, this one, have I set realistic goals with this person? Give me your thoughts. You can even number them 1, 2, 3, or 4, top to bottom. Which one's most important for you to ask yourself before you give feedback to someone the next time? Give me a number in the chat box. What's my intention is number 1. Am I making some assumptions is number 2. Have I laid out my expectations is number 3. Have I set realistic goals is number 4. Which one's the most important one for you? Okay, a lot of votes I'm getting for have I laid out my expectations in clear and direct terms. That seems to be the most common one. Couple votes for have I set realistic goals. Okay. Dagmar likes 2 of them. So have I laid out my expectations and what's my true intention? Okay. I don't care which one you chose. I would invite you though to write down whichever one it is and keep that close by to remind yourself to ask that before you engage in a feedback conversation with someone. Now, in addition, what do we do if feedback is not well received? And again, I point back to, I'm a broken record on this, folks. I point back to our 4 objectives that I talked about at the very beginning. And you know what? Until this becomes a culture and a habit, you may have to articulate this verbally with people so they understand. Why am I giving you feedback? I want to interrogate multiple realities. You know, let me use this beach ball. I see things from this blue stripe here. I'm wearing blue. You know, when I go home, I listen to the blues. I have a Blue Moon beverage. Everything I see is blue. I need to understand what it looks like from the other stripes on here. So I need to interrogate multiple realities. I'm giving you feedback because I want to provoke learning, not just your learning, but my learning as well. I'm giving you feedback because I want to allow each of us and collectively all of us to tackle tough challenges. And I'm giving you feedback because I want all of us to enrich relationships, because when that happens, we all achieve more. That's a big thing. Now, you've got a feedback handout on that walks through a lot of this. Okay, the model is the same for each one of these conversations: giving feedback, asking for feedback, receiving feedback, and then praise, which we'll talk about in a minute. But think of this. Who is someone that you would like to give feedback to? Someone who needs you to set a waypoint for them. Take a second and write that name down on that feedback form. Who's someone you need to give feedback to? And let me just back up my slides here. give you a chance to kind of work this through. What's your experience on what you want to give them feedback on? Remember, where, when, what. Okay, simple, clean, concise, no judgment, no editorializing, just as if you're running it back through a video camera. And video cameras don't embellish. Some say they add 10 pounds, but they don't judge or anything like that. Take a second and write that down. What was your experience? Because that's the main thing you'll really work on and dive into. Explore, again, that's just asking questions. Explain is really more asking questions once you've done the explore part, but the experience is the really big part. The where, when, what, again, with a specific instance, no judgment, no editorializing. You should be able to do the experience part when you're talking to the other person in 30 seconds, 60 seconds tops. If it takes more than that, you probably have too many words in there, or you're probably judging or expanding greatly on what's going on. You won't have to do that now, but I really invite you to pair up with someone after this and just walk through that. Walk through your feedback experience with them and have them give you some feedback on that. What did it sound like? Was it specific? Was there judgment? Was there already some solutions tossed in there? Because that's not what this is all about. Yeah, Manuel, feedback is a gift. Be open to receive and give constructive feedback. Be specific with examples. We tend to think of feedback as just feedback, period. We don't even call it positive or constructive, whatever. We just look at it as feedback, just saying how we apply it. So that's the giving of feedback. What about asking for feedback, though? I mean, in your position, in the highest of high leadership positions that you have, how important is it that you actively ask for feedback? It's vitally important. How many of you regularly ask for feedback? Okay, I see some hands. I don't see a lot of hands. And David, you're absolutely right. It takes courage to ask for feedback. Here's the thing. I don't think we all do it very well. How many times have you heard people, when they're asking for feedback, say the generic, "So tell me, how am I doing? Give me some feedback. How am I doing on this?" Yeah. Gonzalo, not enough. Follow the same model. And you've got it there on the second page, asking for feedback. What specifically are you asking for? I know a lot of people who walk in and say, "Okay, give me some feedback on how I'm doing." And they walk out very disappointed because they didn't get something tangible or didn't get the thing they were really looking for. Well, you already saw the model for giving feedback. That should be the exact same thing in asking for feedback. It should be absolutely specific. Whenever I meet for a client engagement meeting with one of our salespeople, I will specifically go to him afterwards and say, "Okay, I need some feedback on you. What did I do well? What do you wish I would have done differently? What would you like to see me do next time?" That way, I'm getting specific things that I can actually act upon, as opposed to, "Hey, Austin, how'd I do?" And if you want to create this culture, coaching, feedback, whatever, it's got to come from you. You've got to be the one to initiate. You've got to, again, create that environment to where they feel safe in giving you feedback because they know you'll accept it the right way. Now, let me just look back in the chat box because there's been a lot of things popping in there. Again, it takes courage. It allows you to identify hidden areas. Yep. Cherish feedback. Not receiving feedback is a killer. It really is. Feedback is the opportunity to grow. Yeah. All these things. So asking for feedback is great. That's not the make or break it. What's the make or break it? How you receive it. And so again, same model. Yeah, I agree, Christina. It should be one-on-one. Yeah, when you're doing this. I met with an organization. They're like, "Well, we do anonymous feedback things, I'm like, well, there's part of the problem. Now we know we don't have that feedback culture yet because we do it all anonymously. When you receive feedback, though, follow that model and understand anything that I get from someone in feedback is their experience. My intention at that point doesn't matter. What's clear is my intent didn't match their experience. Their experience is what matters. So I have to be open to their experience. Again, multiple realities exist at the same time. You proved it to me with the flying mushroom and the peace and the vacation and the beach. Multiple realities exist at the same time. So we have to understand and appreciate their experience. We can then go to explore and be specific, dive in with curiosity to provoke learning. Tell me more. Where else have you seen this? What's been the impact for you, for others, for the organization? And at the end of that, explain from your perspective what you plan on doing with the feedback. Knowing full well you can't put everyone's feedback into play, but at the very least, you can thank them for giving you some things to consider that you'll hopefully apply to make you a better version of yourself. That's the beauty of this. That model is absolutely the same on all these conversations: giving feedback, asking for feedback, receiving feedback. And let's take a minute and talk about the one with the biggest ROI: praise. Which again, most organizations I've visited don't do praise very well. And it's a shame because there's a good reason to do praise early and often. Gallup did a great survey 5 years ago, and it concluded that employees who receive regular praise, worthy praise, are more productive, they're more engaged, they're far more likely to stay with their organization than people who don't. It also indicated that employees who are praised receive higher loyalty and satisfaction scores from customers. And you'll love this one, they even enjoy better health than people who do not receive praise. So in short, if we want people to know that what they do matters to us, we have to give them far more than just feedback on what needs to change. We have to praise their success. We have to praise their growth. We have to praise the fact that they're doing something with the feedback they've been given. And again, it's all right there in that model. Okay, so what I want to do, I'm going to send you back into breakouts again. And I want to give you 8 minutes to talk about this whole feedback thing. Which form of feedback, if you really concentrated on going forward, would give you the greatest value, the greatest return, would have the greatest impact? Giving, asking, receiving, praise? I'd like you to talk about that amongst your peers. Which form of feedback, if you focused on it, would have the greatest impact on your team, on your people? We're getting everybody back into the main room. Thank you for your conversations there, even though we may have cut one or two off at the end. So again, I'll open this up for a minute or two. Anything outstanding come out of your conversations? Something shocking that you've just got to share? Chat box, come off mute live. Love to hear anything that came out of your conversation as to which form of feedback would provide the most value to you.
Well, I think, Paul, in our group, I think what a lot of the discussion was about creating the right type of environment for the feedback, whether it be about interaction, whether it be about feedback or about praise. If you don't create the environment and around, we talked about culture and consistency, then it's going to come across as either unhelpful feedback, which is construed as criticism, or false praise. And then when that pattern develops, and then it's broken, and the consistency is broken, then trust is broken. And so the technique is or the approach is meaningless. So there was a lot of discussion around that in our group.
Yeah, that's great stuff, Steve. I mean, it has to be intentional. And again, we have to set the environment for it. which means we may have to just simply articulate the fact that we want more feedback. And again, if we ask for it a lot, if we receive it well, and people start to understand that, okay, I can say anything to them because I'm going to put myself in the mind frame. Again, when I get any feedback at all, I'm going to think they're achieving the 4 objectives themselves, that they're interrogating multiple realities, they're provoking learning, mine and theirs. We're partnering together to tackle a tough challenge, and we're enriching relationships. If we all go in with that mindset, I think it's going to work really well. Lots of things in the chat box. Let's see, honest, timely, and supported. That was a key from the conversation, creating that safe zone. So consistent with what Steve was saying. There has to be a balance between praising and identifying areas of opportunity. And that part can be through guided open questions. We need to also provide tools and support for helping improve areas of opportunity. Yep, absolutely agree. Meaningful, not hollow. Yep, honest and timely, absolutely. Providing and receiving feedback is not exclusive of the supervisor role. It's everywhere, up and down. Okay, everywhere. No one is immune to this. Up and down, doesn't matter who reports to who, or if no one reports to anyone, this has to happen. Difficult to ask for feedback on ourselves, much easier to give. Yep, Diane, I agree. I think it's easier for us to ask for feedback on ourselves when we're very specific about what we're asking for. And again, and a lot of people don't because they think it's asking for false praise, or anything like that. But again, if we're very specific about what and why we're asking for it, then I think that may make it easier. Timely, time could be your worst enemy. Agree. Feedback's one of the top 3 things employees ask for in focus groups. Yeah. Communication in general is what employees ask for a lot of times in focus groups that I've seen in the past. And communication is something that leaders think is their top ally in making things go forward. There seems to be a disconnect. Let me wrap up my section with one comment, one final thing here. And really, this is our why behind Fierce, why we do what we do. And that is, while no single conversation is guaranteed to change the trajectory of a career, a company, a relationship, or a life, he pauses for dramatic effect. Any single conversation can. Think about that. I could give you a list of any single conversations that I've had that have totally changed the trajectory for me throughout my life. And I would have to think that you can too. You can think of those conversations. Here's the bigger question though. Outside of a very small subset, a very few examples, how likely is it that the other person knew it was going to be that impactful a conversation? Because outside of the "will you marry me" and a couple very small examples like that, I don't think they knew. Because any single conversation can have that impact. That, my friends, is the power of conversation. That's the responsibility that we have in any conversation that we engage in. Now, my hope is that you enjoyed some of what you heard today, that you would like to hear more, that you think there are others besides you who would benefit from this. And if you do, the beauty is that InnovaCare has a lot of trained facilitators, and there's going to be many opportunities coming up for you and people that you know to attend these and get the full in-depth version of the things that I spoke of today. So again, I hope you enjoyed it. I thank you very much for your time and for your great participation and engagement. I wish you all the very best, and I do hope our paths cross again sometime in the future. Nydia, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Paul. And Paul's going to stick around for a few minutes for questions. But before that, Dr. Shinto, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks, Roz. Listen, just a couple of comments. A great presentation, great discussion today. It's interesting. I was looking at Roz, and we're in our breakout session with Mari Fran and a few others from the Orlando market. And you guys, I'm in Orlando now, trying to provide a lot of feedback. And I thought it's interesting about any one conversation. And a lot of the guys that are on the phone call that were on the OFP call yesterday, we had a very cathartic OFP management meeting, and it was good. But it's interesting listening to this today's discussion, because it helps a lot of us how we could approach it a little bit differently. And I think the 2 statements that I heard was, what was it? Okay, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I think that's true. And leadership is about the heart and the mind. And I think we always need to pay attention to that, you know, you can speak your mind and say whatever you want, but you got to do it with your heart too. And I think looking at leadership and how we address delegation and coaching and feedback, be it positive or negative, constructive, I think if you know that everybody's working together and they're doing it to be helpful to you, then we should be pretty receptive to it, and it shouldn't be attacking each other. And I hope that we all learn a lot from this discussion today, and we all learn how to be more roots and branches. So with that, thank you very much. And Mindy, I'd like to pass it back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Shinto, and thank you everyone for participating.
Paul, can you explain one more time, like, can you give me some examples of desired suddenlies, please?
Yeah, desired suddenly is any goal or objective that you want to achieve. That's our way of calling that. So again, everything happens gradually, then suddenly. And so our desired suddenlies, yeah, goals or objectives that we want to achieve.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another life, we call those wildly important goals, or WIGs.
Yep. Exactly. BHAGs. Big,
Yeah.
hairy, audacious goals. Yep. What else?
Well, this is Sandra. Aside from, of course, teaching our leaders how to provide effective feedback, which is important, and also teaching people how to receive feedback, what would you do first to change a culture of an organization that lacks feedback? You know, aside from doing education, what would be like the first step, the baby step to get it going?
For me, the baby step is announcing the fact that we want to do it, telling people, you know, first and foremost. I mean, you know, we can train them all we want, but if the people around us don't know that that's our goal, we may have limited impact. And so it may sound very simplistic. I am kind of the king of oversimplifying, but that's my thing is let's get on the soapbox and tell them, here's what we want to do. We want to create a culture of feedback. We want to hear it. We promise we will do our best to receive it the right way, but we want that culture to where it's open, honest all the time. And I think we have to keep giving them that message so they hear it over and over again, so they know to expect it. And then, you know, if they do that, they'll hold us accountable to it. And sometimes that's what we need. But I would promote the heck out of it. Let people know from every corner, every break room, here's what we're doing and here's our goal. Over and above all the training. Yeah.
Well, I have a question on the delegation tree. Do you recommend it as much as we use it to delegate? Do you recommend it to use it to be delegated on?
Yeah, you know, there's a great exercise, and Nidia, you know this because you love this model. I encourage leaders, I should have done that today, to take that whole delegation tree and apply it to themselves, or have the people that report to them apply it to themselves. In other words, you know, Nidia, here, take this delegation tree, this decision tree, and over the next 2 weeks, take a look at all of your responsibilities and come back to me with it filled out, telling me where you think you are on the tree with each of your responsibilities. What a great alignment conversation that could be with all of your people, because there are going to be times where I think you're at a trunk, but you think you're a branch or a leaf. I welcome those conversations because that's a great opportunity for us to sit there and talk about this and get aligned. And if someone is only at trunk and you want them to be at branch or leaf, that's another opportunity to say, okay, well, here's the skills that are needed to get to that branch level or that leaf level. Let's map out a path to get there. You know, I think some people will go, oh no, because if there's not alignment, it could be bad. There's simple questions, again, simple open-ended coaching questions to ask to figure it out. For example, if I think someone's at a trunk level and they think they're a branch or leaf, my first question is going to be, help me understand your process for doing, you know, whatever it is you do. Non-threatening, open-ended question. If they can accurately describe the process, then okay, I may have been wrong in my evaluation. If they can't, sounds like we're closer to where I am. Let's talk about how we get to where you want to be. Yeah, I think it's a great tool for us to apply to ourselves, to give to the people that report to us and have them fill out as well. I think it does nothing but create alignment and also gives us something to shoot for from a growth and development perspective.
Hi, Paul. This is Nilsa. How are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm good. I just wanted to comment and ask for advice. I feel very comfortable giving feedback and timely feedback. It's very easy for me as a leader and as a person. And my issue is, how can I get feedback on my side? I mean, I've started conversations, but I'm not having the feedback that I need. And it's rarely timely. So what's your approach?
Nilsa, what do you need? What specifically do you need?
I need feedback. I need timely feedback. You know, I want to know if I'm doing things correctly. I want to know if that's the pathway I should follow. If my strategies are okay, or are they great, or they, you know, just change your strategy, or that type of things, you know, because I want to advance my company, you know, to another level.
Okay.
And that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. So, and don't take this the wrong way, but what you just told me, I'm still not exactly sure that I can understand what exactly you want feedback on. And by that, I mean, I would make it very clear at the end of something. Maybe you did a project, and at the close of the project, then I would say, okay, regarding this part of the project and this part of the project and this part of the project, what did I do well? What do you wish I could have done better? I want to make it very easy for the people to give me feedback, because I'm going to be very specific. I'm going to go back to Nidia after this and say, Nidia, what did I do well in this presentation? What do you wish I would have done differently? If it comes and I do this again, what would you like me to do different next time? What can I do better? I'm going to really narrow it down to these things. Did I engage your audience enough? Should I engage them more, any less? And I'm going to be very, very specific. And so I would ask you do that. And it may take you asking a lot of times before they're finally comfortable and in that groove that you want them to be in. Because some people, let's face it, okay, you've got a couple things working against you in the mind of a lot of people. All right, you're a female, yeah, you're in a high level position, and that intimidates some people, unfortunately. And so it may take some more asking to be able to get that. But again, as specific as you can be after a meeting. Hey, I just ran that meeting. How'd that go for you? You know, did you get what you needed from it? Was there more information you wanted? Was there less? What can I do differently to engage you better in that meeting next time? That's as granular as I'd like to get, because now it's very clear what you're asking for. Does that help?
Yes. I have to narrow things. I think that's the point where I should start narrowing things, maybe, and getting to specifics. So great advice. Thank you.
Thank you. Great question.
I have another question.
Diane, you used your allotment. I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
I'm probably all three, but in regards to your answer to Sandra about your culture, and announce that you're going to ask for feedback, right? So I'm just sitting here thinking, should I send like an all staff email and saying like, tell us one thing we do good or one thing we can improve upon? Or, I mean, how do you elicit honest answers, and how do you make staff comfortable enough to literally say to you, you know, I think our company sucks at communication, you know, how can we do it better? So like, how do you elicit in an email like that, or if you're going to try to elicit feedback from your staff, so that they're just brutally honest with you about how you know, what you're doing good or what you're doing bad?
Yeah. How brutally honest are you with your thoughts and feelings about how things are going?
I think I'm honest about it. Like I don't have any problem saying what's wrong or what's not good and that we need to change.
Mhm.
I'm honest about feedback. I've learned that if I just tell people on a daily basis, this is what you're not doing well, and this is how can we improve it, and what can we do better, so there are no surprises to them. But
okay. So let me stop you there for a second. Let me stop you there. This is what you're not doing well. That's not a conversation. That's a versation.
Okay.
So again, feedback is that whole experience, explore, explain model. On your last report or on your last this, I noticed this specifically where, when, what. Help me understand how that went for you. Okay. Then again, it's the questions to elicit those self-generated insights. What could have been done differently? How could we have achieved a different result? I'd start there to have them start thinking of it themselves. So it's their idea. So they see it from a different lens. The whole, if you're at all familiar with Carol Dweck, I love Carol Dweck. I hate the voice on this recording, but I love the content. The book's called Mindset. And her perspective on feedback is that I'm not doing it great yet. That's the whole thing on feedback. It's not perfect yet. I don't know how to do this yet. And Carol Dweck is talking about the difference between the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. The fixed mindset basically says you're as smart as you're going to be. There's no sense in trying anything different. The growth mindset says with hard work, support, and practice, you can do, learn almost anything. And that's where they apply the feedback part is that, yeah, I'm trying to do this. I'm just not perfecting it yet. Here's what we can do to get there. Or what do you think we should do next to get there?
Mhm.
It's all questions. It's not statements. Statements come very easy for us, but we want to open this up with questions to get their perspective of how it went, what they're doing, what they might need.
Okay.
So that's the big thing. And to Diane, I would either introduce it in a group team meeting live or through your one-on-ones.
Okay.
I think it can tend to sound a little hollow in an email.
Okay.
It almost sounds like an edict from above. Here's what we're going to do now. We are going to give feedback, and so I'd make it a little more human.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
And yes, I'm a smart aleck. Sarcasm is one of my love languages. Sorry. Sandra, Nidia, thank you so much for the opportunity. Really appreciate it. Have a great day, everybody.
No, thank you. Great session.